Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and this somehow turned into a green week. It was sort of a fair bit down during midweek, or nothing too bad, but did seem to be struggling. This is almost all off the back of Solana. Pretty much everything else is red, so yeah, the market might be down, I guess, but Solana has pulled it out of the bag with what appears to be not a lot of news and a fair bit of news to get through. So let's have a look. We got the CoinShares report for last Monday. So this the previous week, of course, as always. We knew last week was pretty good, and it's come out $2.2 billion. This is sort of largely Bitcoin, as we expected, largely into BlackRock ETF, which we sort of covered last week. We had 57 million into Ethereum, so that's a little bit sort of against the grain. It doesn't seem to have been getting a lot of love. We got outflow out of the multi-asset fund, which is a little rare. I have to see sort of if it picks up. Obviously, the month-to-date and year-to-date numbers all look pretty solid. Inflow 2.7 million inflow into Solana. It's obviously quite small, but pretty good. Outflows out of Binance, 1.7 million into Litecoin. You kind of sort of think Litecoin's dead from time to time. A little bit of inflow into XRP. Quite a bit of people shorting Bitcoin. $12 million into shorting Bitcoin. It's only got $84 million in assets under management. So that's a hell of a lot. 15% of total assets gone in this week. Outflow out of Cardano, despite them coming out with their massive news. I guess this is before the news that they're going to unlock DeFi on the whole of Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm not impressed. And 1.8 million outflow out of other coins. So some interesting bits there. And then, yeah, despite the enormous US inflow, we've had outflows across sort of pretty much the rest of the world. Tiny inflow into Australia, but 9 million out of Brazil, 1% of assets under management. Not great. 19 out of Canada, a little bit out of Hong Kong and Germany, and yeah, 18 million out of Sweden, 14 out of Switzerland. So yeah, outflows sort of whether they're putting it into the US ETFs if they're allowed to, don't know, but a little bit of a contrast. And then looking at this week, Ethereum first has been absolute tumbleweed again for another week. We had sort of outflow out of Grayscale on the Monday, sort of some small inflows into BlackRock and Fidelity, but not really offsetting that. Wednesday and Thursday, single figures, 1.2 million net inflow, and then 19 million out of Grayscale, and nothing at all in or out of any of the others. So proper tumbleweed. But on the Bitcoin side, it is looking rather better. We had on the Monday 329 million into BlackRock. That was pretty much the only inflow, and this has sort of been replicated over most of the week. You've seen sort of over a couple hundred million out of ARK's Bitcoin. So Cathie Wood not and sort of analysts not doing their job. You know, you had sort of 200 million of inflows last week and 230 million of outflows this week. I sort of keep saying ARK are the emotional investors. Maybe a little bit harsh on them, but there you go. But it's BlackRock doing all the work. You know, 320, 317 on Wednesday, 165, and then a 292 million to end the week. Although all the funds saw inflow on the Friday, even a little bit into the Grayscale Mini. And as you can see, sort of very little coming out of the Grayscale big boy Bitcoin trust. So more coming out of the Ethereum one than this, despite having an enormous amount of assets still under management at 1.5% fee. So yeah, they're still getting a fair bit of fees coming in, hopefully sort of paying off their debts. Just sort of highlighting the election odds, latest odds as well. This is not just Poly Market. You've got sort of the general betting companies, Betfair, and sort of showing like an aggregated list of all of the betting companies. I wonder whether they're sort of feeding off each other with regard to these odds, because it's a little bit strange. The polls are still saying it's either fairly close, or some of them saying Kamala Harris is favourite, and the betting companies seem to have it heavily odds on for Donald Trump to win. This is the shortest it's been. If you know your betting odds, it's been sort of it was 4-7 not so long ago. It was 8-13 sort of last week, and yeah, it's been sort of longer than that. It was 8-11, I think, a few weeks ago, and not so long ago you had Kamala back as favourite. So this, not sure whether this is sort of people, it's getting called manipulation. I don't really see how you can sort of manipulate these odds. Why you would sort of, if Trump isn't going to win, why you would put a huge amount of money on him winning. But yeah, I would just see this as the market. But I'm not sure if I would say it's more accurate than polls, because this is just who people think is going to win. And yeah, they might be putting their money on the line, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's more accurate than polls. Obviously, as far as Bitcoin goes, the whole community seems to be wanting a Donald Trump win. It would sort of, I guess, be positive for the industry, far more positive than, I guess, 4 years of Kamala Harris, despite what she may, be making changes, getting Gary Gensler out. A lot of people are saying he's basically out whoever wins, and, we haven't really heard that much of her policies. I guess she doesn't want to, or regarding crypto, that is, or regarding anything. I guess she doesn't want to reveal too much that would sort of scupper the election, getting a load of headlines saying she's pro-crypto and it's bad and everything. But, yeah, people seem to be wanting Donald Trump, of course, whether that's a looming disaster for mankind. People are just focusing on their bags, of course. Trump, from what I'm reading, would be seen as a more positive selection for the altcoin space, obviously considering he's doing his NFT drops and his World Liberty Finance token. People sort of see that as altcoins are safe, basically, whereas Kamala is probably positive for Bitcoin in that they're doing, want to be doing an enormous amount more spending, high deficits and all that, but cracking down on altcoins. So, yeah, we'd have to see. But at the moment, it looks like super favourite for Trump on the betting markets, at least. Can't quite work out whether this is linked as well. You got the co-founder of Ripple, Chris Larsen, donated 1.8, I believe 1.8 million in XRP to Kamala Harris before, and he's now donated another 10 million. So yeah, taking that to 18.9 million for her. He hasn't exactly made it super clear why he's donating quite this much. Some people are saying that he's expecting her to win, and this is sort of, hedging bets, basically, trying to get her on side. I don't think you can sort of buy her support with $10 million. But he said, yeah, she knows people who've grown up in the innovation economy her whole life. I think she's sort of got, links to Silicon Valley and the sort of tech firms, and she might be, seen as a younger, more sort of measured voice. And yeah, thinks she gets it at a fundamental level in a way that the Biden folks were just not paying attention to. So yeah, not sure about that. Not sure I'd be given $10 million on that basis. He has a net worth of $3.1 billion, so it's not exactly a massive donation. But it's certainly people piling money in. They're saying nearly half of all corporate money flowing into the election has come from the crypto industry. The Trump side has raised about $7.5 million. So Chris Larsen is sort of eclipsing that in one swoop. People obviously trying to buy up the Democrat side, but yes, very very strange. Speaking of things that are a bit of a surprise, we've seen a lot of noise about this week. Microsoft, with a sort of agenda almost for their annual meeting, they have noted a proposal for investing in Bitcoin. This has been sort of proposed to them by a number of shareholders, I believe. People are saying, often rampant inflation, a company's financial standing is measured not only by how well it conducts its business, but by how well it stores the profits from its business. So Microsoft, obviously one of the big tech companies that have a very large cash balance generally. They have sort of dwindled that down somewhat from the looks of it over the past few years. They sort of made their big acquisition of Activision, which I believe used some of that cash. So they will say that they need the cash for, various things. They can't be sort of piling that into Bitcoin. Saying Microsoft has 484 billion in total assets probably isn't the right thing to do. Some of that is going to be real estate and, just like goodwill, patents and all that sort of thing. So it's probably best to look at just the cash balance. But yeah, they do have I haven't looked exactly how much cash they've got, but a lot of these big tech firms, Google, I think have $90 billion, Apple maybe 50 billion. I'm sure Microsoft have sort of 75 billion or something in cash. It's large cash balances, and people are saying it's not so bad while T-bill rates and cash rates are sort of 4.5%, 5%. But as that starts to sort of dwindle down more, they're sort of getting shredded due to inflation and monetary debasement. Citing MicroStrategy as well, they're saying, which, like Microsoft, is a technology company. I don't think you can say that anymore. They weren't even really too much of a technology company before, it looks like. But unlike Microsoft, now holds Bitcoin on its balance sheet, so much to the point that it's basically become a Bitcoin ETF. Has had its stock outperform Microsoft this year by 313%, which obviously is just because Bitcoin has outperformed that, despite only doing a fraction of the business that Microsoft has, and they're not alone. So you get another sort of smaller companies now taking the MicroStrategy playbook and sort of maybe just buying Bitcoin with their own cash, maybe diluting and sort of selling debt to buy Bitcoin. And yeah, they're noting Microsoft's second largest holder, BlackRock, offers a Bitcoin ETF. Obviously, that's not BlackRock itself. Still see people continuing to say BlackRock are buying Bitcoin themselves and sort of, not noting that it's people holding the BlackRock ETF that own, basically all of that. I don't think BlackRock are buying it for their own assets under management, or their own assets rather. So they've said this would be resolved by requesting that the board conduct an assessment to determine if diversifying the company's balance sheet by including Bitcoin is in the best long-term interests of shareholders. Whether that means even just 1% of their assets in Bitcoin, that may sort of offset this monetary debasement a little. It's not saying you have to put the whole lot in, but if they've got 75 billion, sort of most of that in treasuries, that might be getting 4%. You have 1 or 2% in Bitcoin, that might sort of just give you a bit more of a kicker, and you might sort of offset that monetary debasement. But yeah, who knows? It's noted that the board has recommended to vote against this. Whenever you get these sort of shareholder meetings, if you own a notable amount of shares, even if you own a small amount of shares, sometimes you are asked to vote on these things, and generally when you vote, there'll be a recommendation from the board on every one. A lot of people will just side with, not even understanding some of the things, they'll just side with whatever the board are recommending. And so, yeah, if they log in, this is going to be Bitcoin suggestion. The board recommends to vote against it. You'll have to see whether people want a change. But that is on, looks like the 10th of December. So could be a bit of disappointment when inevitably this is sort of voted down. But it might get people to, discussing it at least. And some smaller companies, I suppose, might sort of think, well, they're not doing it, but we're going to. And you can never go sort of 6 months, it seems, without a bit of Tether sort of negative stories coming out. So, yeah, the Wall Street Journal has sort of come out with a report that a US probe on Tether is imminent, sort of regarding evading sanctions and money laundering and all sorts. Tether CEO Paolo Arduino has came out and said this is sort of old news. They work very closely with law enforcement agencies, sort of many in the US, and that they would know if they were sort of under investigation. They've sort of, you know, they've aided 180 agencies across 45 jurisdictions. I would sort of say if that is over 45 jurisdictions, then it's only the US ones that will count against this, obviously. The US are only going to be sort of interested in their own interests. But yeah, they've recovered $114 million and blocked 225 million worldwide connected to fraud. But maybe that isn't enough. Obviously, they've got what is it, $100 billion in Tether out there. So blocking sort of 200 million in total since they started maybe isn't quite enough if people are using it to sort of evade sanctions. But certainly he has said, as far as he's aware, they are regurgitating old noise, full stop. But we know all the while Tether are not going down or being sued. They're making a fortune on their treasury position. Sort of whatever they've got, $100 billion in treasuries. They have been putting the excess into Bitcoin and gold. I think actually part of their reserves, they do say, is in gold. They're not sort of looking to put Bitcoin as part of the reserves. The buying Bitcoin is just with the profit. But I think they do actually say some of the reserves are gold. So it doesn't all yield that cash. But yeah, I think it looks like they've bought some gold as with part of the profit sort of on top. So as they say, they've got 105% of the total Tether in reserves and excess. So they now hold 82,400 Bitcoin and 48.3 tons of gold, which is, I believe, 1.7 million ounces. So quite the gold total. Good to sort of see it, getting a bit of love. They're saying the best hedge against chaos is a combination of Bitcoin and gold, which I just think is strong. I don't see why sort of so many Bitcoin people sort of hate on gold, and vice versa. You got Peter Schiff always saying Bitcoin's going to zero, when in reality they can just follow the same path and go up together. They're both going up for the same reason. Why you've got to sort of constantly say it's terrible and it's going to zero all the way up. Peter Schiff was there at sort of $3,000 Bitcoin saying it was going to nothing, and we're now $68,000. So yeah, well done, Peter. It's October, so we're starting getting the Q3 Masari reports out, and Polygon have gone first. It's looking pretty poor from the looks of it. I've seen my holding is sort of dwindling down. I'm guessing the two are linked because looks like user activity is quite significantly down. We've got daily active addresses, had sort of rocketed up to 1.2 million from 800,000, was sort of 300,000 in the sort of fairly steady 360,000, and it's now come back down to 863. So they'll say it's up year on year, but I would see that as not ideal. And some of the other metrics look far, far worse. So daily transactions sort of quite a bit down, 22% on last quarter. Weekly active core devs down 30%, although this does seem to be true of a lot of chains. But yeah, it's down from 513 devs down to 148 from last year. TVL sort of staying relatively the same. I suppose if this is in dollar value, then that probably does mean people are using it a little bit more if the price has gone down and TVL in dollars is staying the same. Stablecoin market cap increasing slightly, but I don't really think many people care about sort of Polygon as a stable coin chain, and daily gaming active addresses absolutely tanking, down from 412,000 to 74,000. Was 238 in Q1. Is up year on year again, but yeah, sort of a very short-lived push, basically. So you can see from this chart, their sort of total use in pretty much everything else has been sort of relatively constant. Wallet transfers is sort of a little bit more constant than everything else, and it was gaming that basically sort of pushed it up for 2 quarters and is now back down to basically the long-term low levels. Didn't actually look as to sort of what game or games were driving this particularly, but yeah, seems to be a fairly short-term pump. The only reason that is sort of keeping me in Polygon really was some of these sort of good-looking metrics for the last couple of quarters, and Polymarket, as they note. They've got 1.4 billion in bets on the US elections and 2 billion in volume, 140,000 new accounts in October alone. But none of this seems to be sort of feeding into actual growth for Polygon itself. And just a little bit more detail on their sort of ecosystem. Again, not looking particularly good. DEX volume down to 74 million, slightly up on last quarter, but was sort of in the mid hundreds earlier in the year. NFT volume is sort of not doing particularly great. I never really see them as an NFT chain. $1.3 million in a whole quarter isn't exactly great. 35,000 sales, and then it's not just gaming active addresses that are down. Gaming transactions down 82%. So less people and less transactions. The two don't always go together. You can have sort of less people but very active people if it's a popular game. And you can see what little NFT volume they had has sort of trailed. The quarter might look okay, being July, August, and September, but you can see sort of towards the end of that quarter, it has dwindled down to almost nothing. So not ideal. I'm guessing the fourth quarter isn't going to look particularly good unless this suddenly rockets up for whatever reason. So basically, in summary, it all looks rather poor. I am considering sort of, admittedly, I'm down like 60 odd % on this. I bought sort of in December 2022, so it was almost the low of the Bitcoin bear market. So to be down 60%, I think it's down about 50 or 60% this year, while Bitcoin has sort of been up 2.5x, I think. So yeah, it's been poor. The only thing I could gain sort of from here is taking a rather noticeable tax loss. So I could sort of get $2,000 worth, or £2,000 I think worth of tax loss, and sort of if I put that into something else, and even if this goes up and the other thing goes up, then I'm better off having switched, basically. Polygon could even outperform what I sort of choose to switch to, and if it doesn't outperform by that much, I'd still be better off having sort of taken the tax loss. So yeah, it's the only thing I'm sort of considering. Like I say, the only thing you've sort of seem to be having left now is Polymarket. But yeah, certainly after the election, that's probably going to get a bit of a drop. That seems to be one of the popular things people are betting on. So yeah, kind of possibly putting that on the sell pile, although it is only sort of £1,000 now. Somewhat similarly with Audius as well. Again, I've got a sort of fairly large loss on Audius. I've always sort of stayed holding this because of my bullishness on the music industry, and sort of thinking that crypto and NFTs are potentially a big fit. The industry, from what I gather, the record labels and sort of other parts of the infrastructure effectively take about sort of 90%, 80 to 90% of an artist's revenue, which obviously they have a job that they are doing. If the artists want to keep all of their revenue, you have to do everything yourself, and that may be sort of out of people's expertise. But yeah, Audius sort of was sort of doing okay in 2023, sort of had a reasonable spike, and I was getting bullish again, and has sort of been drifting away down to nothing. This is API calls, so people using the integrations and stuff, but you've seen users sort of come down a fair bit, and if you even look at this month, it doesn't look great. Plays sort of again peaked out in 2023 and has been plummeting down again. This month looks even worse. I think it's going to be about 2.3 to 2.5 million. So yeah, that's going to be, you know, another month down here or so. Not exactly great. So yeah, another potential, you know, have to accept that this wasn't a great token, wasn't a great use of crypto potentially. So could take a tax loss, you know, put it into either just one of my other coins or potentially the options side. And yeah, even if Audius sort of outperforms, then I may still do well. So looking at performance for the week, Bitcoin is down 1.25%. Solana, as I say, without a huge amount of news that I can see, is up 10%, so incredibly against the grain. Ethereum is down 6%, so a lot of people are focusing on the sort of Solana to Ethereum ratio and sort of saying it's eating Ethereum's lunch. Chainlink down 4.5%, XRP down 4.5%. Kind of still looking at XRP similarly as some of these others. Whether, you know, I wouldn't be taking a hit because I did buy it in sort of 2018, 2019 time. So yeah, I'm up like 600% or something. It says 1,000 here. I'm not sure that's quite right, but yeah, it certainly wouldn't be. It would be crystallizing again rather than taking a tax loss to invest in something else. But yeah, it's still like $50 billion fully diluted market cap, and they're sort of constantly selling every month 1 million. I believe it's 1 million XRP, or no, 1 billion XRP, I think. Yeah, so it's not ideal. Constant selling pressure. Power Ledger down 8.9%. Audius now down 9%. Gala, so I was considering selling Gala, and sort of metrics had been looking up a little bit. I thought I might have, you know, got a little bit of a pump to sell on it. Sort of got to about 1,600, nearly £1,700, and yeah, it's come crashing right down. It's down 16.7% this week. Internet Computer down 3.7%. Quant, another one that was sort of on the sell pile and has just been languishing. That's down 6%. Quite a big tax loss on that, so certainly want to consider selling. Basic Attention Token 10%, but the sort of user metrics do look pretty good, to be fair, so I'm probably not going to be selling that one. Polygon is down 8% and VeChain down 6%, which again, you know, all looking not great. Obviously VeChain isn't a particularly big loss because I did buy it sort of in this bear market. So yeah, it's not looking ideal, but I am sort of trying to work out whether I should be selling some of this stuff. Would appreciate your comments if you guys are sort of doing similar, or if you're just not keen on some of these smaller altcoins, maybe sort of your own smaller altcoins. So yeah, leave your thoughts in comments below and like and subscribe. See you soon.